The World Cup, one of the largest televised events on our world, where athletes from all across the globe come together to compete, all with the same goal of being crowned champions and being immortalized in history. What isn't televised as often, though, is the impact that this has on the viewers themselves. Now, with a quick show of hands, I would like to ask, who here watched the most recent edition of this tournament? Okay, that's a lot of hands. As expected, Qatar 2022 ranked up to 3.6 billion viewers worldwide, while the finals alone had over 1.8 billion. This means that more than half of the population of Earth came together due to their shared passion for the game. No other modern-day case comes close to these numbers, especially not at a global stage. The World Cup is not just a sporting event. It is a cultural phenomenon that brings people together, no matter one's political, linguistical, or cultural background that they may have. Now, with another quick show of hands, I would like to ask, who here supported Lionel Messi and the championship-winning team Argentina? Okay, that's good to know. Sadly, if your hand didn't go up, I'm going to politely ask you to leave today's event. I'm just kidding, don't worry. I wouldn't do that to you. You've already been through enough. I do have to say, though, being an Argentinian myself, it was probably one of the best days of my life. However, living this in a foreign country rather than back home definitely made a difference. Hi, I'm Manuel, and I lived in Argentina up until 2019, where as a 13-year-old boy, I received the life-changing news that my family and I would be immigrating to Canada. At the time, this was pretty scary, but because I was young and naive, I was excited to see what this new future would be like. I expected the transition to go smoothly, but once I arrived, the challenges of adapting to a new culture quickly became apparent. Language, in particular, became a significant hurdle, and the initial struggle to communicate effectively with others created a deep sense of isolation. The beginning of my life in Canada unfolded differently than I had anticipated. And in just a couple of months, I went from being a very outgoing kid with lots of enthusiasm for the future to a kid whose excitement had died off and would rather spend his time playing basketball by himself at a nearby park. Now, this wouldn't go on forever, since one day, as I made my way to the park, I encountered a group of kids my age playing against each other, who luckily enough for me asked if I wanted to join, which I gladly said yes to. As the day progressed, we formed a shared bond over our enjoyment of basketball, and I realized that I could use this common interest to build connections. In just a matter of hours, it felt as if I had been reborn. The difference in language that had previously impeded any sort of communication seemed to vanish, as if it was never there. Poof. The basketball court quickly became a place where I could transcend language limitations and build relationships with those who also shared a passion for this sport. But how exactly was it that happened? Well, first of all, we have to take a look at what brings people together. Researchers from the University of Kansas ran a study where they found that people are 5 times more likely to get along with each other if they can find parts of themselves in the other person. This means we have a preference for individuals with the same shared identity traits as us. Pretty straightforward. However, when looking at scenarios where the general population is culturally divergent, such as Canada, this might not be as easy as it seems. Identity is defined as the traits that make up one's persona, such as nationality, social groups, beliefs, and personal interests. But when trying to get along with somebody from a different country, most of these are deemed useless. Nationality is self-explanatory, while social groups and beliefs tend to vary deeply from culture to culture. So all that leaves us with is one's personal interest. Okay, but where exactly do sports come in? Well, when growing up, one of the first things that we get to decide by ourselves is whether we want to participate in recreational activities or not. Unlike these other qualities, which we are usually born with, sports becomes one of our first chosen identity traits, meaning we have a say in whether we want to let this represent part of ourselves or not. And that's what makes it so important. We want this to be part of who we are. We want to spend time participating in this activity. And consequently, that opens up the possibility of meeting people simply because of a shared interest. It no longer matters if you can communicate verbally or not, because now you can express yourself through the universal language of sports. Kevin De Bruyne, Belgium's soccer superstar, said it best, when asked about how his multilingual team manages to communicate effectively on the field. He said, "We try our best to find a middle ground so that everybody can understand. But at the end of the day, what really matters is that we all speak soccer, and that unites them." Now, not only do sports provide opportunities on the court, they also provide them off the court as well. When we think about a learning environment, our minds tend to go towards places such as a lecture hall, a classroom, or a library. However, some of the most important lessons in life aren't taught in those places. They are taught on the court or on the field. Sports not only teaches us important social skills, such as teamwork, cooperation, and leadership, they also teach us personal skills that help us daily, such as time management, goal setting, and time consciousness. This was especially helpful for 13-year-old me, since when I arrived to Canada, I only had a month before I had to start high school. Now, can you imagine that? Having to not only adapt to a new culture, adapt to a new language, you also have to start doing trigonometry in a month. Yeah, wasn't looking forward to that. That would have been a huge challenge, especially since I lacked most of the skills that the average Canadian high school already possessed. This connection that I made with those kids at the park not only helped me acquire those skills, but also provided me with lifelong friends, some of whom are even here today, which supported me throughout the whole journey. Basketball was my example. It was a sport that had the most impact on my life, and that's why I talk about it so much. But there are millions of examples just like this of people's lives improving drastically because of a sport. A big one of these events, of these examples, happened in the Christmas of 1914. Now, this wasn't any regular Christmas, since this event took place during the heights of the First World War on the western front of France, with German soldiers on one side and the French and British soldiers on the other. As winter approached, countless soldiers were living in misery, and even more had already died. Everything seemed grim. Morale was low, food was running out, did not seem like it would get any better soon. But then, Christmas Day came. A series of unofficial ceasefires took place where armies from both sides put down their weapons and came together to participate in a shared soccer match in no man's land. Even if it was just for a couple hours, soldiers who had been fighting each other for months were able to set aside their differences and come together for a special day. And no, this didn't put an end to the war, but it did go to show the power that sports has, that even in a drastic event such as a world war, it can still bring people together. Basketball and sports has done a great deal of things for me. I don't know where I'd be without them. The amount of people whose paths I've crossed simply because I decided to pick up a ball is countless. It is clear what basketball has done for me. So then I asked myself, what can I do for basketball? Since then, I've spent a large amount of time dedicating myself to programming, organizing, volunteering, and working at multiple camps and programs across the city to help promote this sport for youth and adults alike. All with the goal of being able to provide this experience that I had that was so helpful at a young age to others who may need it. Because when you let people share a ball, you give them the same color jersey, you put them in the same huddle, regardless of color, difference, or gender, special things start to occur. Cultural barriers are broken down. Differences fade away. And in every one of those events, new relationships are born and old ones are strengthened. Because at the end of the day, sports is about having fun. And when we have fun, we get along. I'm going to leave you with one question. What will sports do for you? Where will sports take you? But most importantly, whom will sports take you towards? Thank you.